I'm from the Metro Toronto Movement for Literacy. We are one of 16 regional networks in Ontario that help to coordinate literacy. I'm the research and development person at MTML. I'm the program manager, project manager for research and development, and we're currently working on a project called Exploring Learner Pathways, Visualizing the Learning Journey. So for us, what is applicable is to look at education holistically. So the phase one of our project, which was completed in spring of 2012, was called Meeting at the LBS ESL Intersections. That project had a frontline focus. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And our current phase is visualizing the learning journey. So it's taking what we learned from phase one, which I'll share with you, and applying it to some visual tools we're creating to help people realize where along their learning journey certain programs might be appropriate. So in front of you, what you have is a little definition of adult education as per the Kathleen Wynn's Ontario Learns 2005 report that was submitted to the Ministry of Education. And there were 15 recommendations, and you'll notice that Learner Pathways recommendation 6 is highlighted. That's the idea of learner pathways really driving entry points and exit points and transition points is key in how our project is looking at appropriate times to enter certain doors. This is something for you to take a look, and often the Ontario Learns report was the springboard for a lot of what's going on across the ministries. So I just would like you to have this as a resource to contemplate, you know, why are we talking pathways? Every single place you go, whether it's a TESOL Toronto, TESOL Ontario conference, settlement agencies, local immigration partnerships are talking about communities and building relationships. It's all about helping people navigate these pathways. So my visuals here show that in 2005, the report stated that the programs that were there were like an archipelago without a ferry system, and that the provincial government's vision is articulated here in this sheet that you have. It's more of an understandable, easy to navigate system. So that's the holistic view of the background of where this project kind of stemmed from. That's the policy paper from which a lot of ideas and brainstorming springs. There was another report called Too Many Left Behind, and there was some research conducted across several provinces. Ontario was one of them, and there were focus groups, and educators came together, and managers and policy people, and they said fragmented, incomplete, difficult to navigate. So everything that CLARS is doing, everything that our project is doing, all is about trying to make it easier to navigate, it being the number of programs that are available. I love this visual because there are certain assessment and referral doors people go through. At the moment, you know, you can go to your school board and get your ESL assessment. You have the welcome centers in York Region. You have the YMCA here in Toronto. But you also have other programs who have entry points. Literacy and basic skills, you'll have them in the 3 sectors I mentioned. You have colleges, school boards, and community-based agencies. Language training you're all familiar with. Adult credit, you have a certain way a person enters into adult credit programs. And within adult credit, there's also ESL credit courses. So that's something else to really know that our clients or potential learners are getting information about many of these programs, but maybe can't decipher it all. And then there's academic upgrading programs, whether it's ACE, which is Academic Career Entrance, a college program that does upgrading so that one can enter college courses, but not university courses. So there's different types of programming. Immigrants are found in all the programs, and the immigrant realities, however, are that because Canadian-born workers have lost their jobs, and you see that immigrants, newcomers, or settled immigrants, or displaced workers are 3 times more likely than Canadian-born workers to have lost jobs. Also, the low income level of a lot of our immigrants, 23.8% considered low income in 2009, higher than the province's overall 13.1. That was in the Drummond report. And then you have the idea that almost 1 in 5 of immigrants with low-level literacy skills are expected to be living in Toronto by 2031. So there was a mention about that literacy. There'll be, I think Erin will talk about how they're also going to be testing in the CLARS for literacy, much more so. And then there's the higher levels and the lower levels. This is my little idea of silos. And we all work in silos because of our funding. But MCI and CIC, because of the Canada-Ontario Immigration Agreement, have created this amazing harmonized, coordinated language assessment and referral system. But when you're looking at adult education holistically, you have Ministry of Education offering adult credit. You have MTCU offering some pre-apprenticeship programs, literacy and basic skills programs, set-in career programming. You have MCI and CIC offering the language training. And at many levels, even the higher levels, the Ontario Bridge training, the really moving into sector-specific training. But service coordination is basically our topic here today, looking at how we can all understand each other. Pauline McNaughton, who heads the Adult Education Policy Unit of the Ministry of Education, says, in all 3 ministries, immigrants are in all our programs. They're stakeholders for all of us, and their pathway is a critical focus. So their pathway is hard to define because they're coming in at different levels of language, different levels of skills, perhaps highly educated, perhaps a growing type of demographic that really never had a chance to learn or go to school because they come from war-torn situations. Our phase 1 looked at exploring the pathways, and we called it a frontline focus type of research project. We did focus groups with LBS learners who were immigrants, and they were attending literacy and basic skills programs. Those programs offer reading, writing, and math, and computer, and they're typically geared for people who have a very fluid, intermediate proficiency of spoken, are very comfortable speaking English, so that there's a gap in their reading, writing. They struggle with that phonemic awareness and putting it to paper. So we looked at 74, we talked to 74 learners. We also spoke to LBS instructors and assessors about how they go about deciding appropriate referrals. We talked to stakeholders across the programs. We talked to people in language training, CIC and MCI. We spoke to Ontario Works case managers. We spoke to some settlement service agencies. And we got a picture of how people perceive programs out there. So let me just show you. In the 74 learners we spoke to, there were 40 different languages. In the 74 learners attending LBS programs, 39% of the participants also spoke more than 3 languages. So that— Is English one of them? Yes. Yeah, English is one of them. So, and the top 3 that we found in the programs that we visited, Spanish, Somali, and Tigrinya. Okay? And then the country of origin, 40 different countries of origin, coincidentally, in the 74 learners. So diversity in Toronto, York region, the norm, right? For Somalia, Ethiopia, and Mexico, those were the learners that we had in our literacy and basic skills programs. Number of years in Canada, I thought that this would be an interesting slide to show you all, because what do you notice? You would expect maybe not so many newcomers, but there were quite a few out of the 74. There were 12 newcomers, 1 to 3 years. There was even somebody very new, very fresh there. So just over half of the focus group participants indicated they have been in Canada for 10 years or less. So somehow they made their way into LBS, and some of them maybe they're just fine because they do have that gap between reading and speaking. Speaking, listening is high, but reading, writing is low. Now, I just wanted to mention the Exploring Learning Pathways. Stakeholder interviews that we conducted were really eye-opening, and some of your discussions, the ones that had the blue sheet, I heard some of these issues raised again. Misinformation or gaps in information with respect to other programs and eligibility criteria. Separation of programs, an element of competition. Somebody over there mentioned numbers. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We need our numbers, we'll take them. That sort of thing. But I want to guide you to this very encouraging sentence in the middle, or phrase, that the informal relationships between programs and the initiative of staff dedicated to serving the best interests of the learners are what lead to learners being referred to other adult education and training programs. So that idea that the best interest of the learners, and you are an informed assessor, intake person, you know enough, or have a wonderful, rich, tattered folder. We found that those people who had years of practice referring people have a wealth of information in their folders. Cards, notes, oh, send so-and-so to this program, very aware of their community programming. So that was very encouraging. And also, the last point in the stakeholder interviews, program managers rarely, if ever, sit down together from across the programs, from the various, to discuss learner transitions across the programs. So what we found in our phase 1 leads to what I'm about to tell you about our phase 2. Also, we also asked you in that sheet how your clients or learners find their way, and no surprise there, word of mouth was one of the main, if not the main. OW caseworker, ESL credit teacher or ESL non-credit teacher told me to come here. Referred from a college to the LBS program. So many of these. Walk-in, sometimes at the office, somebody made a judgment call and said, oh, your English is very strong. Whether, you should go maybe to the LBS. So that's what I can speak to about what we looked at, that little snapshot of 74 LBS learners, and then spoke to stakeholders. Our recommendations in phase 1, which lead to what you'll find interesting in our phase 2 and hopefully useful, is that we recommended improving access to information about the range of learning and training programs. So knowing about your program or maybe one other person's program might not be enough when you have tremendous diverse needs of people coming to you. Also, service delivery agencies providing adult literacy should increase their knowledge and awareness of each other. How do you do that? Okay, and also support partnerships and collaborative initiatives. So the other two, I don't know if you're going to distribute the PowerPoint presentation. Please feel free. You can. I will direct you to where you can find the full report. The full report is 170 pages, but there's wonderful supporting resources that you might find interesting. And I'll speak about unpacking the term literacy near the end. Okay, so I'm going to I don't have too many slides, not to worry. Phase 2 is rooted in phase 1, so we thought, let's see if we can build on the relationships and work with the relationships we created in phase 1. Well, we're delighted that we have an advisory committee for our phase 2 project that is looking to create easy access tools regarding raising awareness about the array of programs and common learning pathways and transition points. So what we did is we created, we have an advisory committee that has MCI, MTCU, Ministry of Training Colleges, Universities, and EDU representation. And on our work group, which works to help create the tools or validate certain pathways and transition points, we have from York Region and Toronto, we have people from Adult Credit, from LINC, from ESL programs, sitting at the table and looking at how we're describing transition points and programs. We did our due diligence. I have to say this will come up. I'll let you know when this will be released. We did a surveying the information landscape. We looked at all the online and not all the paper tools, but a good number of brochures. Where and how do we find information about adult education and training? In this document, we also did a literature review of how immigrants actually go about finding information, so their information practices. A very quick glance, you'll notice that in the ESL FSL learner survey, friend or family told me was very high, how they came to their class. Interestingly, the internet here, even if you're completed college, you'd use 10% of the time, maximum 17% if you're a university person. But the lower levels, no school, grade school, some high school, are between 3 and 7%. So the internet is not where they go. They go to their family or friends, or this is the golden place to work on opportunities, settlement or social service agencies, right? And that's for ESL, FSL. Oops. I'll go back one. LBS program, same thing. Our assessor said that many Ontario Works caseworkers referred to clients. Word of mouth was the greatest. Self-referral, sometimes walk-in. Link stats, the evaluation of the Link program in 2010. This is our little infographic. Family and friends, 21%. This is how learners found this side. Assessment center, 26. Settlement or social service agencies, 15. Internet, 3%. Brochure, 2%. And when they ask service providers how they promote the programs, brochures, 65%. So is that shocking? Family and friends, word of mouth, 28% internet and community newspapers. And some are in their first language, which are quite effective as well. So this is a slide I could spend an hour on, but trust me when I tell you we did our due diligence about looking at information practices and who keeps the information or who sends people. Gatekeepers in the community, the children themselves sometimes act as mediators for information. So, and we looked at issues like digital divide. That will come into play with knowing how to use the technology. Just to find an appropriate search term takes a very high CLB level because you need to adjust your phrasing of what you're searching, and that is something. Immigrants will use the computer, but more in their own language, to going back to their own language newspapers. What we're doing in the second phase of this project is we're developing information tools. So it'll be a toolkit, and that's our little guide. It'll be called Compass, I believe, and it'll help people at settlement agencies, Ontario Works, kind of have a preliminary conversation about where they have already been to school, what they're doing currently, and where they want to go, and have enough information about eligibility and transitions to send them to the right door, to send them to the assessment center, to send them to the right place. So I'll keep you all posted, and through Amy and through our official dissemination in May of everything. So we're hoping that the sheets that we create, the conversation of how to go about asking some basic questions so you can determine which door would be best to start with, will come out of this project. Okay. And this was a key quote from one of our learners, and I thought it says it all, because for me, it's very important about the information again. And he talks about it changes your life if you have the right information. So I have all these, I have my card, but I ask you to write down this particular website, learnerpathways.wordpress.com. You'll find a wonderful resource document about unpacking the term literacy, what literacy means in the ESL world, and literacy with respect to the International Adult Literacy Survey. So that's where you can actually start to make yourself aware of the tool. There's many tools. All the PDFs are on that website. There's also a very interesting learner portraits. Looks at pathways people have taken, and they're not really easy to say, oh, everybody takes that pathway. People get into the programs in very interesting ways, and the reason, in their own words, they are taking that program. Okay. Thank you very much.